After a moment of reflection, Sima Jingming's eyes gleamed with sudden insight. Oh, and aside from the ascension platforms, there is another method to secretly ascend to the immortal realm in the spirit domain realm, bypassing the platforms altogether, he said, his voice measured. Hanli's heart quivered, yet his expression remained calm. Oh, tell me of this method, he prompted with a casual air. This method is simple in concept. One must locate a fragile spatial node between the spirit domain and immortal realm, and then forcefully break through it with spatial attribute arrays or other means. This opens the way into the space between realms, allowing one to travel through it to reach the immortal realm, Sima Jingming explained. Han Li pondered, then spoke with a slight frown. That sounds more perilous than the proper ascension path. Indeed, Han Li had once used this very method to ascend from the human realm to the spirit realm. It seemed this technique could only be employed in realms like the spirit domain, where the immortal realm's presence was close. Indeed, Senior Han, it is a dangerous method. The space between realms is fraught with peril, and even if one manages to pass through, they might find themselves in a perilous location in the immortal realm. Those areas where the space is fragile are often the most dangerous, Sima Jingming admitted. Furthermore, the benefits of proper ascension, like refining one's body in the immortal pond or receiving an immortal badge, would be lost, making this path fraught with further risks. Han Li nodded, his face an unreadable mask, though inwardly he felt a thrill of excitement. The troublesome predicament of ascension had finally found a solution. With his current power, the risks Sima Jingming spoke of were of little concern. He simply needed to prepare thoroughly. Thank you, fellow Taoist Sima, Han Li said, his gratitude sincere. No, Senior Han, it is you who have elevated our sect to unprecedented heights. Patriarch Coldflame himself sends his deepest thanks, Sima Jingming said earnestly. Ah, fellow Taoist Coldflame still remembers me? Han Li's gaze shifted meaningfully. Sima Jingming's heart skipped a beat, but before he could respond, Han Li swiftly cut him off. I must take my leave now, fellow Taoist Sima. With those words, Han Li shot out of the hall, a streak of azure light vanishing into the distant sky. Sima Jingming watched in silence, letting out a sigh of relief. After Han Li departed, he vanished from the spirit domain realm, as if he had never been. Yet, his deeds began to weave into the fabric of legend. Whispers spread like wildfire, recounting his formidable power, his seclusion, and his mysterious ways. Some said he was a reclusive immortal. Others spoke of him as a descendant of a true spirit, living for countless years. Opinions on him varied wildly. Some saw him as a merciless fiend, while others hailed him as a savior who cleansed the realm of the heavenly ghost sect's menace, bringing peace once more. The realm's equilibrium shattered upon his arrival, and his departure left a turbulent wake. It took centuries for the chaos to settle into a new landscape of power, but that was a tale for another time. Months later, far in the north, a great and dark sea, known as the Black Mist Sea, roiled beneath a sky concealed by impenetrable black fog. It was a place of danger and treasure, where many cultivators sought fortune and glory. At the heart of this mist-laden sea, 3 cultivators, an elderly man in black robes, a middle-aged priest, and a young woman in green, battled a fearsome sea beast, a black-striped blue manatee. The sea beast was formidable, but the trio worked in perfect harmony, using their combined power to overwhelm it. After an intense struggle, the beast was slain, but the battle's aftermath still echoed in the air. The young woman, eyes gleaming, proposed they press onward, deeper into the perilous black mist sea. But the black-robed elder, his face grave, cautioned against it. The core of the sea, he explained, was home to sea beasts even more powerful, creatures of spatial tempering and body integration stage strength. And at its heart, a terrifying legend lurked, a grand ascension stage 5-clawed black dragon, said to dwell in the depths for over 100,000 years. Despite the warning, the others were tempted by the thought of greater challenges. But before they could decide, the sky trembled with a deafening roar, a storm of wind and spiritual pressure descending upon them. Panic struck, and they attempted to flee, but the ferocious winds tossed them about like leaves caught in a storm. Then, from the depths of the sea, a gargantuan shadow rose. A colossal black worm, its scales gleaming with an eerie light, crashed onto a nearby island, shaking the very air with its presence. Its power was overwhelming, far beyond the reach of the trio's strength, and fear gripped them all. The elders' thoughts raced. Could the legends be true? The worm's massive body twisted, causing the island to tremble once more. Then, from the depths of the sea, a flash of azure light streaked past, too fast to track with the naked eye. The worm froze, its head jerking back as a torrent of blood erupted from its neck, splattering the island with a crimson deluge. The beast collapsed, its mighty form falling still. In the midst of the carnage, a young man in azure robes appeared, a figure of unparalleled grace and power. With a single motion, he captured a fleeing fragment of the beast's essence, sealing it within a jade vial as though it were no more than a trinket. The trio of cultivators stood stunned, their jaws slack with awe and disbelief. The azure-robed man's true identity was now clear. Han Li, a figure of legend, whose power seemed to transcend the very heavens themselves. The azure-robed youth, with nary a glance for the three cultivators, strode toward the colossal head of the black worm. With a swift motion of his hand, the worm's skull burst open, and from within emerged a translucent black core, streaked with profound runes, a demon core, pulsing with otherworldly power. He inspected it briefly, then tucked it away. Without breaking stride, he slashed downward with a single hand, cleaving the worm's four massive claws, each severed with a resounding crack. The claws, too, were claimed by the young cultivator, who turned his attention to the worm's neck. There, a singular silver scale gleamed amongst the black, as large as a man and etched with glowing runes, accompanied by several bone spikes, radiating powerful spiritual energy. He gathered these treasures, then fixed his gaze upon the nearby trio. No hostility stirred in his eyes, yet the cultivators froze, drenched in cold sweat, unsure how to act. With a fleeting glance, the azure youth took to the air, vanishing into the horizon in a streak of blue light. "Was that the five-clawed black dragon we spoke of?" the middle-aged priest asked, glancing at the worm's lifeless form. The elderly man in black nodded solemnly. "It is. This beast was likely at the Grand Ascension stage," he mused. The young woman in green gasped. "That senior did not require any treasures to slay such a beast. His power was unmatched. Could he have been a Grand Ascension cultivator too? Perhaps, but he does not resemble Senior Sema or Senior Closed Mountain," the middle-aged priest speculated. "Could it be someone in disguise?" the green-robed woman asked, uncertainty in her voice. "No," the elderly man replied firmly. "He was a body cultivator. His strength was pure physical might. He is no one we've seen." "Could there be other Grand Ascension beings?" the young woman pressed. "Indeed," the elderly man said, eyes narrowing. "Senior Han Li, the one who eradicated the Heavenly Ghost sect in one night, is also a body cultivator." Recognition flashed across the woman's face. "Ah! He has the appearance of youth, though he is said to be an immortal." "Exactly," the middle-aged priest added. "A descended immortal, no less." Their conversation turned to the treasures left behind by the worm. As deity transformation cultivators, they knew that even a single fragment of its flesh could stir great commotion. The black worm's remains were a prize worth fighting for. In a distant part of the spirit domain realm, the Heavenly Crystal Sect, a sect rich in ancient history yet low in renown, was rocked by a violent clash. A silver-robed elder was flung back by a golden burst of light, blood spilling from his mouth, his magical bowl now rendered useless. Hovering across from him was the azure-robed cultivator, his face obscured by azure light. The elder recovered, swallowing a medicinal pill. "Your strength is overwhelming, fellow Taoist," he said, bowing in respect. "I concede. The exquisite 8 treasures jade is yours." With a simple gesture, the azure-robed cultivator received the jade box, opened it with a flick of his finger, and examined the 8 colored spiritual stones inside, nodding with satisfaction. "I shall make good use of this," he remarked coldly, stowing the treasures away. A storage bracelet, brimming with wealth, was sent in exchange, and the cultivator disappeared into the sky. Months passed, and rumors swirled of a mysterious figure plundering valuable treasures across the realm, yet no outrage followed, for the treasures were always compensated generously. In the southeastern spirit domain, the Fire Cloud Mountain Range, a land of volcanoes and molten lava, simmered with danger. Deep within the range, at the heart of a fiery abyss, Han Li meditated in a cavern, his mind focused on 2 powerful artifacts: The exquisite 8 treasures bone armor and the heaven-piercing gauntlets, treasures of immense power, each requiring extraordinary physical strength to wield fully. These relics, carefully crafted from ancient methods, were the key to a dangerous path of ascension. With a smile, Hanli stored them away and examined a map detailing the brittle spatial nodes he had discovered. With resolve in his heart, he soared into the sky, his figure a flash of azure light as he set his course for the unknown. Atop a towering snow-covered mountain that soared over 100,000 feet, thunder rumbled, and dark clouds swirled ominously, punctuated by occasional flashes of blue lightning. Beneath this tempest, fierce winds howled, sending flurries of snow spinning into the air. Yet, not far from this chaotic scene, a serene landscape lay under a bright moon. A stark contrast to the violent storm. At the mountain's peak, its summit cleaved off to reveal a vast plateau. Here stood towering black stone pillars, arranged in 2 concentric rings. Spirit patterns were inscribed into the ground, and spirit stones, glowing with potent spiritual energy, crowned each pillar. At the center of this arrangement sat a solitary figure, a cultivator amidst the storm. Clad in a thin azure robe, his features sharp and unremarkable, Hanli sat cross-legged, eyes closed in concentration. With swift hand seals and a low chant, he invoked the Big Dipper origin arts, and suddenly, brilliant silver light erupted from the peak. 7 massive pillars of light shot skyward, their radiance cutting through the dark clouds, evaporating snowflakes in their wake. Hanli's movements were fluid as he continued his incantations. From his waist, 7 star moon mirrors flew out, each entering one of the silver pillars. Their light merging into an overwhelming force, a vortex appeared above Hanli, pulling the mirrors toward its center. The silver pillars, too, were drawn in, tilting and bending as they aligned with the growing vortex. With a thunderous roar, the 7 pillars fused into a singular beam of light that connected the heavens and earth, stretching over 1,000 feet in diameter, enveloping the entire mountain. Above, the Big Dipper constellation flickered with purplish silver light, its stars shifting and rearranging into a perfect circle. From this formation, a beam of purplish silver light surged down, striking Hanli with such force that his clothing was incinerated. His body glowed with a brilliant silver hue, translucent as if encased in liquid silver. Beneath this radiance, his muscles and bones began to change, his very form being transformed by the energy. The light cascaded from the sky like falling snowflakes, forming a protective barrier around the mountain. The vibrations of this immense power rippled through the land, shaking the mountain range and splitting the earth. Fissures tore through the ground, rivers shifted course, and the very fabric of the forest was upended as creatures fled in terror. Far away, an ancient volcano, long dormant, erupted in response to the violent tremors, spewing lava and rocks high into the sky. Cultivators and demonic figures, sensing the immense spiritual fluctuations, gathered from far and wide. They watched in awe and fear, none daring to approach the source of the disturbance. Could it be a grand ascension cultivator undergoing tribulation? One asked in disbelief. But an elder shook his head, recognizing the phenomenon as a display of profound cultivation, not a celestial trial. Suddenly, a mighty explosion of energy erupted from the peak, and the cultivators were forced to retreat, some narrowly avoiding death. The silver sphere of light that surrounded the mountain expanded, consuming the entire peak, and even from a distance, it was difficult to discern the mountain's true shape. Far away on the Nine Palace Peak, Taoist Closed Mountain stood alone on the star-gathering platform, his gaze fixed on the sky, reflecting on his actions and the potential consequences of Hanli's departure. At the Cold Flame Sect's Holy Fire Peak, Sima Jingming, relieved that Hanli was finally leaving, sighed, his mind freed from the weight of the powerful cultivator's presence. Meanwhile, on Cloudrise Peak, Yu Menghan gazed at the sky, lost in thought, her companion Gu Yunyue noting with a teasing smile the wealth and resources Hanli had bestowed upon her. In a distant cave on Cloudrise Peak, Taoist white stone poured over a mysterious cultivation text given to him by Hanli, his progress in mastering the ghostly art of the Heavenly Ghost sect, marking a significant leap in his own cultivation. Though his time with Hanli was short, it had profoundly impacted his path. Thus the mountain trembled, the sky darkened, and the cultivators stood at the precipice of an unfolding saga of power, transformation, and the lingering influence of a transcendent figure. In the vast expanse of the night sky, the stars dimmed under the shadow of a radiant purplish silver Big Dipper, its light shining like a sun of otherworldly brilliance. Without warning, the immense pillar of light descending from the heavens vanished, and a deafening rumble echoed through the air. The spherical barrier that had enshrouded the mountain shattered violently, scattering silver sparks that shimmered like a celestial rain of fireflies. In the distance, the storm of light collapsed toward the peak, converging into the form of a young man, Han Li, his body glowing in a brilliant silver radiance. Amidst the onslaught of light, his eyes remained shut, unwavering. After a long silence, his lashes fluttered and his eyes snapped open, gleaming with a reflective, ethereal light. A breath escaped him, silver mist flowing from his lips, as 7 points of blue light flickered on his chest. His seventh profound aperture had manifested. The silver light around him dimmed, replaced by a thin, transparent membrane enveloping his form, a true extreme membrane, marking the completion of his mastery over the Big Dipper origin arts. His joy knew no bounds as he tested the membrane, compressing it into his body and summoning it forth with a mere thought. To his delight, his spiritual sense surged, now surpassing even the most seasoned true immortals, marking a significant step on his path to the immortal realm. But the tranquility of the moment was fleeting. The realm itself recoiled against his newly attained power, rejecting him with an overwhelming force. The air grew thick, as though the very fabric of existence sought to smother his presence. Han Li's eyes narrowed, his hands moved in a swift, practiced dance, and a complex array of silver light began to form around him. The spatial spirit pattern array, a relic of the Origin Realm temple, surged to life, its intricate patterns glowing with an ancient brilliance. Though not capable of directly shattering space, it would ease the pressure that sought to cast him from this realm. As pillars of silver light erupted into the heavens, a vortex formed in the storming skies above. The winds howled and the dark clouds swirled violently as lightning coiled like serpents around the array. Observing from afar, the vagrant cultivators were filled with dread. Retreating far from the tumultuous spectacle, Han Li, undeterred, raised his hand, releasing a torrent of star-moon mirrors, their spatial powers pulsing through the pillars of light. The mirrors vanished into the swirling storm, and with a decisive chant, Han Li unleashed a roar that reverberated through the heavens. Silver starlight erupted from his body, forming a barrier of light in the heart of the vortex, revealing a chaos of shifting spatial rifts. Without hesitation, Han Li transformed into a towering golden ape, its massive form exuding an aura of indomitable strength. The ape's glabella split open, releasing a surge of black chi as an eye emerged, radiating dark light. A thread of black energy lashed out, and the sky itself trembled. A colossal wall of gray light appeared within the vortex, its surface covered in deep cracks that threatened to crumble under the force of Han Li's next strike. The giant ape, fueled by untold power, surged forward, its fists smashing into the gray wall with a deafening impact. The gauntlets on its fists exploded as the silver worm's head projection blasted through the air. The wall of light cracked open, revealing a space beyond, its raw spatial fluctuations pushing against Han Li with a force that was almost unbearable. With a final roar, the ape reverted to its human form, and Han Li dove into the rift, disappearing into the murky abyss. As he passed through, the vortex behind him collapsed, the storm quieting as the spatial rifts sealed once more. The mountainside fell into a serene calm, as if the chaos had never been. The silence was all-encompassing, broken only by the winds that whispered through the snow. In the turbulent expanse of the interrealm gap, streaks of multicolored light surged violently, crashing into each other with thunderous roars. Waves of light clashed as spatial rifts tore open, unleashing a deafening hum and a powerful suction force. Even the mightiest Grand Ascension cultivators or indestructible demon beasts were forced to tread carefully, for a single lapse in concentration would mean their demise, their very souls obliterated. This was the gap between realms, a domain where destruction and rebirth were intimately intertwined. Amidst this chaos, Han Li found himself akin to a swimmer tossed into an ocean of storms. He had known the perils of this place, but the sight still took his breath away. The spatial storms raged far fiercer than what he had endured during his ascension, threatening to tear him apart at every turn. Without his true extreme body and countless enhancements, his body would have been shattered the instant he entered. Wrapped in the exquisite eight treasures bone armor, a treasure forged with the finest materials from the spirit domain realm, Han Li fought the relentless force of the storm. The armor shimmered with protective enchantments, images of umbrellas and shields emerging and spinning around him, merging into a barrier of radiant light. Only then did the force of the storm relent, allowing him to regain his balance. His eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he observed the armor, which had been refined specifically to withstand the spatial storm. Even with this protection, progress through the storm was agonizingly slow, each step hard earned as his surroundings swirled with dangerous light. After only a mere 50 kilometers, the spiritual energy within the armor had begun to wane. Realizing the necessity of pushing forward, Han Li summoned a bright rainbow light, transforming into the majestic form of the heavenly phoenix. Its wings outstretched and its fiery cry shaking the heavens. The armor shifted, bone plates adhering to the phoenix's forms as the protective barrier remained intact. With newfound speed, the heavenly phoenix soared, its body leaving behind a trail of rainbow light that diverted the spatial storms with ease. This form, capable of manipulating space itself, was like a predator in its natural domain, gliding effortlessly through the chaos. Yet, as time wore on, the burden of maintaining this transformation began to show. His energy waned, and the protective barrier surrounding him weakened, cracks appearing in the once mighty bone armor. Despite this, Han Li pressed on, the sight of a distant speck of white light ahead filling him with hope. It grew brighter the closer he approached, its sacred aura unmistakable. This was the Immortal Realm. His heart surged with anticipation, but before he could reach it, his path was obstructed by a massive, yellow bubble hovering in the storm. The bubble, an enigmatic force, deflected the spatial chaos effortlessly. Han Li attempted to avoid it, but a sudden burst of force sent the Heavenly Phoenix crashing into it, sinking into its depths without resistance. As he steadied himself, Han Li marveled at the strange world within the bubble. A peaceful, yellow-tinted land stretched before him, rich with spirit herbs and ancient trees. Yet, before he could explore, a thunderous roar broke the silence, and a gargantuan yellow fist shot from the sky. The yellow clouds surrounding the giant figure swirled violently as the colossal fist shot toward Han Li with crushing force. Unfazed, Han Li activated his Big Dipper origin arts, his body surrounded by bands of starlight as he met the giant's blow with a punch of his own. The impact shook the very fabric of space, sending shockwaves rippling through the air. Han Li was pushed back, but the giant staggered, clearly not unscathed. The winds blew apart the yellow cloud, revealing the form of the giant, and Han Li readied himself for the next clash in this new, mysterious world. Amidst the chaos of battle, Han Li swiftly activated the True Extreme Membrane, a translucent shield enveloping his form, shimmering with silver light. The earth-shattering punch of the one-eyed giant was blocked, yet Han Li could not help but marvel at the monstrous force of the blow. However, his True Extreme body stood firm, the strike having left him unharmed. Before him, the yellow-skinned behemoth towered, a giant of grotesque visage, towering between 2,000 and 3,000 feet, its entire form covered in peculiar spirit markings. Its singular, enormous vertical eyes shimmered with a strange, foggy radiance. The aura it exuded was not one of mere cultivation, but an instinctive menace that shook Han Li to his core, as if facing a force equal to that of a true immortal. Taken aback by Han Li's resilience, the giant bellowed in rage, its body radiating a vast yellow glow. With a ground-shaking stomp, it surged toward Han Li with terrifying speed. Han Li, undeterred, chanted an incantation, and in a flash, his form transformed into a towering golden ape of over 200 feet. The constellation of 7 blue stars upon its chest flared, intertwining with the golden radiance to magnify its already enormous size. With a roar, the ape clenched its fist, and a colossal golden fist, laced with starlight, materialized crashing toward the oncoming giant. The giant responded with a savage roar, raising its own fist to meet the attack. The collision of their strike sent shockwaves through the air, and the giant was sent reeling, crashing down to the island below, creating a massive crater upon impact. Above the giant's fallen form, the golden ape appeared, its fists a blur as they rained down upon the giant with relentless fury. The one-eyed giant, though shaken, climbed to its feet unscathed and retaliated with a guttural roar, stomping once more. Strange yellow patterns rippled over its body, and translucent yellow light spread outward, transforming the surrounding earth into yellow sand that formed a protective armor around it. The golden ape faltered, its barrage failing to break through the armor, and swiftly retreated. The one-eyed giant cast a cold, calculating gaze upward, and with a second stomp, its power surged, and the surrounding gravity increased to crushing levels, dragging the golden ape back toward the earth. Realizing the gravity at play, Hanli's golden ape was forced to the ground, its massive feet sinking deep into the soil as the one-eyed giant approached, lashing out with brutal punches. The golden ape raised its arms to block, but the blows sent tremors through its form, and it sank deeper into the earth with each hit. It was as if a great weight were pressing upon it, and the ape was in danger of being buried alive. Just as hope seemed lost, the earth behind the one-eyed giant erupted, and from the swirling winds emerged a fearsome centaur-like creature, its body shimmering with azure light. Standing over 1,000 feet tall, its lower half was a massive horse's body covered in azure scales, while its upper half was that of a muscular man with 3 heads, each emanating power and ferocity. In one fluid motion, the centaur raised a massive blue lightning spear and hurled it toward the one-eyed giant. The spear, crackling with violent arcs of lightning, struck the giant just as it was focused on its opponent. The beast roared in fury as the spear pierced its side, exploding with arcs of lightning, creating a gaping hole in its abdomen, sending blood pouring forth. The centaur landed, its faces gleaming with victory, but its joy was short-lived. The blow, though severe, had not been fatal, for the one-eyed giant had manipulated the yellow sand beneath it, raising the earth to deflect the strike. The giant staggered but remained defiant, its body beginning to heal as yellow light swirled around the wound, turning the flesh to stone. The gravity surrounding the golden ape lightened, allowing it to leap from the ground and retreat to a safe distance, eyeing the centaur with newfound caution. Han Li, sensing the tides of battle shifting, shrank back to his human form, vanishing in a flash as his high zenith invisibility talisman activated. The one-eyed giant, momentarily distracted, looked around in confusion, while the centaur's eyes narrowed, its focus now fully on the giant. The battle was far from over, and the next clash of titans was inevitable. The mighty one-eyed giant, feeling the hostile gaze of the centaur-like creature, crouched low, ready for battle. A cold gleam flashed through its single eye as it prepared to face the looming threat. The centaur creature's eyes glowed with fierce electricity as lightning arcs erupted from its azure scales, forming a colossal halberd crackling with violent power. The creature raised its weapon high, then launched itself forward, its hooves propelling it at incredible speed. With each strike of the halberd, a series of lightning projections shot through the air, aiming to strike the giant down. The one-eyed giant responded with a mighty roar, stomping its foot to the earth. The ground trembled beneath its strength, and a massive tornado of yellow sand formed, rising to envelop the giant as it transformed into a colossal staff, glowing with radiant yellow light. The staff swung with immense force, meeting the lightning halberd projections in midair, shattering them into bursts of dazzling blue lightning. But the centaur creature's halberd was relentless. It weaved through the staff projections, its deadly arcs seeking to strike at the giant, its movements as swift and unpredictable as lightning itself. The giant, wielding its staff like an extension of its own body, responded with a torrent of staff projections, forming a massive bird that soared towards the halberd strikes. The clash of yellow light and blue lightning filled the sky with deafening explosions, causing shockwaves to ripple through the air. As the battle intensified, the bubble enclosing the combatants trembled, its surface rippling like a disturbed lake, threatening to shatter. Hidden behind the high zenith invisibility talisman, Han Li observed from afar, torn between continuing his journey and witnessing this fierce struggle. The giant, weakening from a prior injury, began to falter, while the centaur creature's attacks grew fiercer. The blue halberd projections gained the upper hand, slowly overwhelming the yellow staff projections. In a desperate move, the giant summoned a massive screen of yellow sand, blocking the halberd strikes and forcing the creature back. With a burst of light, the sand transformed into an immovable barrier. The centaur creature, undeterred, summoned a powerful sphere of blue and azure lightning, hurling it at the sand barrier. The explosion tore a hole in the sand, and the centaur creature sped through it in pursuit, only to find the giant was gone. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from behind the sand screen, revealing the giant, its aura weakened but its spirit burning with fury. In a shocking twist, the giant's eye shot a beam of white light, annihilating the halberd and striking the centaur creature with debilitating force, slowing its every move. With its magic faltering, the creature was vulnerable as a massive golden ape emerged from the shadows, its fists blazing with golden light. The centaur creature, taken by surprise, summoned a wind dragon to counter the ape's attacks. But the ape, unharmed by the dragon's assault, swatted aside the creature's remaining head with brutal force, causing it to explode. The wind dragon, undeterred, continued its assault, but the golden ape's dark demonic eye manifested, releasing 3 beams of spiritual light, tearing through the air in search of its prey. The battle raged on, its outcome uncertain, as forces beyond imagination collided with one another. The golden ape unleashed a roar as it exhaled a surge of azure light which darted into the swirling orb of black and blue energy. Instantly, the orb erupted in a blaze of spiritual runes, spinning at a blinding speed as countless threads of light shot forth, intertwining to form a vast, shimmering net that spanned several kilometers. This formidable power, birthed from Han Li's unique fusion of his bright sight spirit eyes and law destruction eye, demanded the complete expenditure of his energy. The net quivered as a distortion rippled through its fabric, signaling an intrusion. The golden ape, faster than the eye could follow, dashed toward the disturbance with the ferocity of a lightning strike, leaving the azure wind dragon behind. The dragon bellowed in fury, hot on its heels, but the ape reached the target first. With a flash of golden brilliance, the ape's hand descended like a hammer, obliterating the disturbed net and revealing the centaur-like creature. In a single motion, the ape struck with a second fist, causing the creature to stagger before crossing its arms to shield itself. A cold snort escaped the ape's lips, and the creature's body stiffened, overwhelmed by an intense pain searing through its mind. In the blink of an eye, the ape's fist crushed through its defenses, shattering the creature's final head in a spray of gore. The azure wind dragon, now enraged, charged toward the ape with its horn poised to strike, but the creature crumbled away with a tortured cry, releasing an azure shadow from its disintegrating form. The shadow coalesced into a miniature version of the centaur-like beast, a nascent soul that flashed into motion, disappearing into the air with afterimages. The golden ape, sensing the threat, summoned the law destruction eye, firing a thread of black light that collided with the nascent soul, forcing it back into view. Silver chains of fire materialized, converging on the entity, trapping it in a net of searing flames. The miniature creature attempted to resist with a whirlwind of azure wind, but the golden ape's mighty punch shattered its defense, and the nascent soul exploded in a chaotic burst. Bloodied but undeterred, the ape turned toward the one-eyed giant, still clinging to life despite its grievous wounds. The giant, encased in yellow sand, conjured a massive boat to flee, its eye glowing with intent. A beam of white light shot toward the ape, but the golden ape evaded the attack by shrinking into Han Li's form. The beam of light shifted, now targeting Han Li directly, but a flash of inspiration struck him. He threw the heaven-controlling vial at the beam, and to his astonishment, the vial absorbed the light, neutralizing its power without a hint of reaction. Elated, Han Li retrieved the vial and, with renewed resolve, continued his pursuit of the retreating giant. As the golden ape once again took shape, a thunderous roar reverberated through the air, warping space itself. The one-eyed giant's sand boat was obliterated by shockwaves, and the giant itself was sent hurtling from the sky, crashing down to earth. Han Li arrived swiftly, his fist crushing the giant's skull in a shower of blood. The nascent soul, now free from the giant's body, was quickly captured in a fiery net, sealed by silver runes, rendering it immobile. Han Li, having learned from his earlier encounter, summoned the Essence Fire Raven to trap the soul with ease. Uh, the giant's body collapsed into a heap of sand, leaving only its darkened eye behind. As Hanli contemplated the eye, he sensed its significance and sealed it away in a jade box. His thoughts turned to the nascent soul, pondering its potential value in the immortal realm. However, with no time to dwell on it, he sealed the soul away and turned his attention to the centaur-like creature's remains. After storing the spoils of battle, Han Li allowed himself a moment to catch his breath, surveying the damage done to the island. With a final glance at the shattered landscape, he flew off, his senses alert to the mysteries yet to unfold in the forest ahead. The vast forest stretched out, filled with flora of every kind, each more wondrous than the last. Even Han Li, with his vast knowledge, felt like an unknowing child in the presence of these rare and exotic plants. Many were over 1,000 years old, with some reaching into the tens of thousands, their presence overwhelming in both size and spiritual power. Han Li's heart stirred as he carefully harvested each specimen, knowing the worth of such treasures. His eyes sparkled, and even though he had sensed this mysterious space with his spiritual sense, the reality before him left him in awe. After 2 hours of exploration, he arrived at a barren area of the forest. Ahead, a massive cave yawned open like a great maw in the earth. With a practiced eye, Hanli surveyed his surroundings, ensuring no danger was present, before venturing inside. The cave was dim and humid, with water dripping from its walls. The path sloped downward for nearly half an hour, the air growing colder as white crystals began to appear, their pale light growing brighter the deeper he traveled. At last, Hanli reached a vast cavern, its size stretching for thousands of feet. White crystals adorned the ceiling, their light reflecting off the rippling surface of an underground lake. Amidst the serene beauty, Hanli's attention was fixed on a massive rock protruding from the water, atop which stood a strange tree. Its bark was smooth, and its branches bore fruits resembling walnuts, but each fruit was covered in intricate, twisted patterns resembling human faces. These faces were expressions of both old age and infancy, yet each one pulsed with powerful earth attributes spiritual energy. This tree, Hanli realized, was the cause of the fierce battle between two monstrous beings he had witnessed earlier. Such a tree, where even true immortal-like creatures fought to claim it, could not be ordinary. He stroked his chin, contemplating the significance of this place, but for now the space within the bubble was his to claim. Meanwhile, in the Immortal Realm, a fierce storm raged above a mountain range, its fury marked by howling winds and cascading snow. Within the tallest peak, a voice rang out, sharp and filled with wrath. "Who dared to kill my spirit pet? I will find you and tear you apart." The mountain trembled under her fury, the snow sliding off in sheets as an avalanche descended in response to her rage. Far to the north, on a vast black island in the northern glacial immortal region, an intense battle was underway. Two opposing factions clashed violently in the village. One side composed of massive, tusked warriors wielding heavy maces, their bodies cloaked in strange white light. The other side was made up of human cultivators and crimson-armored warriors, whose emotionless faces gave them the appearance of soulless puppets. The battle raged fiercely, with blood spilling in torrents as crimson and yellow lights clashed in the air. In the center of the village, on a white stone plaza, a group of black-robed figures sat in a circle around a massive statue. Their palms pressed to their left arms, blood flowing from gashes on their wrists, which formed a complex array etched into the ground. The statue, a young man holding a book, towered above them, its gaze directed far into the distance. The blood of the practitioners fed into the array, and one elderly figure, draped in gray robes, stood before the statue with reverence. His voice rang out in prayer, "Almighty ancestral God, descend at the call of your devoted bloodline." The earth trembled, the statue of the young scholar standing tall amidst a sea of crimson. Blood poured from the channels etched into the stone, flowing like a river toward the base of the statue. The air vibrated as the white-haired elder muttered ancient prayers, his voice quivering with reverence. A crimson light shimmered over the statue, pulsing with irregular intensity. A vortex of blood and energy swirled before him, releasing strange, powerful waves. With a faint hum, a figure clad in crimson armor emerged from the vortex. Its expression was wooden, its gaze cold as it scanned the scene. Without hesitation, it soared into the sky, rushing toward the battle outside the plaza. A second Crimson Warrior followed, joining the fray with ruthless precision. Meanwhile, a young girl in black robes collapsed. Her face, ashen and pale, betrayed the toll of the ritual. Her wrist, torn open, no longer spilled blood, but her strength had faded entirely. The elder's eyes softened in pity, but his hand waved dismissively, unwilling to intervene. A burly man hurried forward, lifting the girl and feeding her a red pill. Her place was swiftly taken by another young girl of similar age, fear marking her expression. She sat cross-legged, hands trembling as she rolled up her sleeve and drew a small blade across her wrist. The red blood flowed again, feeding the channels below her. The altar's energy surged, churning forth crimson warriors to stall the advancing enemy, but it was all in vain. The sound of battle drew closer, and despair began to settle over the plaza. The ancestral heritage of the tribe, bound within the altar and the statue, was at risk. If destroyed, their tribe would be no more. Outside, the human cultivators fought desperately, pushed back into a shrinking circle of defense. In the skies, thunder rumbled, and blinding orbs of light clashed as figures descended, battle-hardened and unyielding. 6 green-skinned foreign warriors landed, their tusks gleaming with malice, led by a towering figure in purple robes. The aura of this leader, a Grand Ascension cultivator, radiated overwhelming power, and his subordinates were equally formidable. They faced 5 human cultivators, led by Luo Feng, a scholar of the late body integration stage, but his team was outmatched. Despair crept into his heart, yet his gaze remained fixed on the statue as he clutched his broken shield. A sudden explosion of white light erupted before them, and shockwaves tore through the battlefield. Several figures shot forth from the light, their forms battered, clothes torn. The human cultivators staggered to their feet, disoriented but alive. Luo Feng wiped the blood from his lips and looked toward the statue, his heart heavy with doubt. The foreign leader, Tuhar, taunted him, mocking their ancestral god's failure to answer their calls. The scholar's face twisted in frustration, unable to counter the truth in Tuhar's words. The Cold Crystal Tribe's leader, Tuhar, jeered, urging them to surrender, promising to slaughter the entire tribe if they resisted. His followers closed in, tearing through the defenses of the human cultivators. As the final moments of their struggle loomed, a sudden change occurred. The statue trembled, releasing a burst of black light that grew brighter with each passing moment. The elderly man cried out in triumph, announcing the return of their ancestral god. Luo Feng's heart soared. The humans rallied, their spirits reignited as the enemy faltered. Above, Tuhar could scarcely believe his eyes. A black vortex formed in the sky, black lightning crackling and tearing at the very fabric of reality. The winds howled as the origin chi of the world churned violently, and all eyes turned skyward, awe-stricken. Within the vortex, a figure emerged, a man in azure robes, disheveled but undeniably powerful. The storm of the interrealm had taken its toll, leaving him weary, but his presence was undeniable. Luo Feng's face lit up with joy as he recognized the figure. "Esteemed ancestral god," he cried, his voice filled with reverence. He fell to his knees, his heart swelling with gratitude and hope. The ancestral god had returned. His people's salvation had arrived.